Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be unpacking a new article provided by Redfin that talks about how the housing market is more expensive than ever, with home prices hitting all-time highs and mortgage rates rising. So I got all of the notes, the stats and facts, things to unpack here. And in a market such as this, we're going to talk about things to consider if you are a home buyer and things to consider if you're a home seller. So if you're new to the channel, I make these videos just to keep you up to date on what is taking place in the housing market. We unpack all sorts of stats and facts. If you're into that sort of thing, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's get into the nitty gritty here, if you will. So median home prices, they are up 5.2% year on year. A lot of this has to do with the lack of supply and inventory that we've had in the housing market. So we have more demand than there is housing inventory available. That is pushing prices up. Median home prices coming in at $383,825. On top of that, we've had mortgage rates rise pretty substantially here over the last couple weeks. So the median mortgage payment, that is up 12.6% year on year. That's actually a rather substantial increase. The median mortgage payments coming in at $2,843 per month, and that's based on the median priced home at around $380,000. That's, according to Redfin, that's with mortgage rates at 7.1%. Now, even though they update this information weekly, there's a little bit of a lag. So my guess is that 7.1% interest rate, because mortgage rates have risen over the last week, we're likely to see that increase going into next week, because the national average is now, at least according to Mortgage News Daily, it's coming in around 7.5%. So something to consider. We could even see that median monthly mortgage payment go up into the upper $2,800 range, maybe even touch $2,900, just depending on how next week's survey comes out. So we'll keep you posted on that. Pending home sales, they're down 3.8%. This is the biggest decline in 6 weeks. The market is ultimately hypersensitive to these mortgage rates. So a few weeks back, the national average was right in the upper 6% range. It hadn't quite touched 7%. We saw about a 0.5% increase over a short period of time. It's no surprise that we're starting to see pending transactions slow down just a little bit. Again, something to monitor. Now, that's not typical for this time of year because we are in the spring, heading into the summer season. This is generally where you see more sales. So this is ultimately putting a little bit of strain here on the housing market on a national level. Now, new listings are up 10.2%. Active listings are up 10.1% year on year. They're sitting at about 840,000. Now, 10% increase in inventory is pretty substantial, but we're still sitting under a million units for sale. So that puts the month's worth of supply at 3.2. And even though that's up 0.4% on the year, 3 months worth of inventory is still what we would consider a seller's market. So there's not a ton of inventory that's putting downward pressure on housing prices at this point. And it really does seem, in most cases, in a lot of these markets across the United States, is that the buyer demand outweighs the current levels of supply that we have. So now, higher rates, we start to see inventory build. That's really not a big surprise there. We also start to see days on market increase, meaning they sit for longer. Let's see, what else do we got here? Now, the more inventory, like I said, and the longer days on market starts to put downward pressure on prices, but we're really not seeing that today because the inventory levels are still relatively low. So one of the silver linings in higher mortgage rates right now is that if they remain high, it's possible that we continue to see inventory to build. If inventory continues to build, maybe we get to a position where we have 4, 5, 6 months, then you might start seeing some more meaningful declines in pricing. But I don't know where that supply is honestly going to come from at this point. I mean, there's life circumstances that are getting people to list, but there are many homeowners that are just holding out. They don't want to sell their home because they're locked into such a low mortgage rate. Instead of selling, they just converted it into a rental, a cash flowing rental at that. The share of listings seeing price drops, that's sitting at about 6%. That is a 1.7% growth over last year. So we're starting to see a few more price reductions. But what that equates to is about 1 in 17 homes are seeing price reductions in this market. I wouldn't really call that a huge number. Let me know what you think. Leave it in the comments below. Now, the average sales price compared to the list price. So homes are closing on average. Again, this is nationwide. They're closing for about 99.2% of the original list price. So in other words, if a home is listed for $500,000, it's closing for, $496,000. So slight discount to the list price. This does not take into account any sort of seller concessions for closing costs or rate buy downs and things like that, but something to be aware of. So anyway, those are the stats for this week. Now, things to consider. Okay, if you are a potential seller in this market, you want to price fairly but competitively, because sellers are in a position to get top dollar for their homes, but you still need to be able to attract a willing and able buyer. So if you punch out a price too high, you're going to scare off that buyer pool and the home will sit on the market. You're going to get where was I going with that? Okay. Anyway, if you're pricing fairly but competitively based on the data, based on the comps, based on price per square foot, based on the amenities of homes that are similar size and quality in the area, you're going to get lots of activity up front, which ultimately leads to offers. And that's what you want. You want multiple offers if you can. You want to let the market do the work for you. If you get multiple offers, generally you can even see above listing price, and close higher than what you actually list for. Now, pricing correctly, that's going to be critical to avoid price cuts as the higher rates erode buyers' purchasing power. So if you price it correctly, drive a lot of that activity up front, then you're not going to have to chase the market down, especially if we're in an environment where mortgage rates continue to rise. All right, switching gears, things to consider if you are a potential buyer in today's market. Okay, if you are in a position where you can afford to purchase in today's market, the silver lining of these higher mortgage rates is that you really do have less buyer demand out there. There are less people that can actually qualify for purchasing a home for the monthly mortgage payments. And so if you're out there shopping, what I am considering, I am looking to purchase in today's market. I believe, at least me personally, I want to be extremely selective. Okay, I want to think through what home will meet the needs not only now but in the future. And I would be looking at maybe a 7 to 10 year time horizon, and I want to be taking into consideration life circumstances that are going to impact those needs. For instance, marriage, growing family, maybe having kids, school districts, work locations, amenities, etc. And so I want to be very selective in today's market, because I know that I don't want to be turning around and selling that property or be in a position where I have to sell in 2 or 3 years. You never really want to put yourself in a position where you become a motivated seller. And so the way to avoid that, at least in my view, is that you do want to have a really strong financial footing. Ideally, you want to have an emergency fund set aside, and that would be in addition to the down payment and closing costs needed to get into the home. You want to make sure your debt to income ratios are, reasonable, meaning, maybe the housing expense or the housing payment, your mortgage, principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So maybe, 30 to 35% or less of your gross monthly income. And you want to make sure that you have very stable employment and ideally not variable income. If you're 100% commission based and you're uncertain of where the future holds for, your career, then right now may be challenging to go out and purchase a home, especially when the average monthly mortgage payment on a home is, coming in around $3,000 a month. And you got to keep in mind is that that's the mortgage payment. And then in addition to that, you're going to have the operating costs of that property, what it takes to maintain it, plus the utilities and things like that. So I am absolutely still an advocate to own, because I believe that home ownership is a great way to build wealth over the long term, but you don't want to put yourself in a position where you are married to that mortgage payment and it eats up the majority of your monthly income and leaves you with very little discretionary spending. So anyway, those are my 2 cents. I hope you guys are enjoying the day. I'm recording this on a Saturday, so if you're watching this now, have a wonderful weekend. Hope you're enjoying some time with family and friends. And anyway, I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you on the next one. If you haven't done so, consider liking, subscribing. Talk to you later. Bye.